Alrighty, welcome everyone. We are here this hour with Sarah Miller of Heritage Auctions. So Sarah, you got it.
Wonderful.
Sarah is the Senior Numismatist and Deputy Director of the New York office for Heritage Auctions, which I'm guessing we're all familiar with. And so she's going to give us a little bit of an inside look at how their operations work and some of the interesting coins that have walked through their doors. So Sarah, I'm going to let you take it away. I will be here if you need anything, and audience members, feel free to send in questions to the Q&A and we will come back around to those at the end.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much to everyone who's joining us wherever you are in the world. I do notice some familiar names in the guest box, so nice to see those of you that I've met, and for those of you that I haven't, welcome. Thanks for joining us. To get started today, let's see here. Go to my next slide. Perfect. So here we are. So to get started, I'm going to give you a little background, give you an idea of what a day at our office at Heritage looks like, go over what we've seen in the auction market recently, some trends in collecting, then a little fun show and tell I really hope you'll enjoy. And at the end, we'll finish off with Q&A. Now, for those of you who haven't met me, again, my name's Sarah Miller. I have been collecting coins since I was 11 years old, and I sort of came into the coin business not in the way that most people expect. Probably one of the most common questions that I hear is, well, was your father interested in coins? Was someone in your family interested in coins? And funny enough, people are usually surprised to hear that I dragged my dad into coins rather than the other way around. I was an entrepreneurial kid, grew up in the Midwest, in the Chicago area, and I loved making things that I crafted, knitted goods, beaded jewelry, etc. And this love for making things led me to a bead and jewelry show that bored my poor father. But funny enough, there was a coin convention happening at the same time in the same convention hall. So I walked into that coin show with my dad and I fell in love with Morgan dollars. I thought it was amazing that you could purchase a coin from 1885 and you could hold it in your hand and imagine who owned it, what was happening in history at that time. I was hooked. I bought a red book and begged my dad to help me start a coin business. Instead of telling me I was crazy, he said, okay, honey, we'll try it. And my dad and I, went on the road. We started going to shows together. We started traveling, learning about coins. At this time, long before I worked at Heritage, I enjoyed using auction catalogs as a way to learn. And I always recommend that to young numismatists. It's just a great way to see all kinds of things that you wouldn't otherwise see or couldn't otherwise afford on a 12-year-old's budget. But I continued on from there, and by the time I'd graduated college, I had been working for a coin dealer from age 14 on. I was working for him pretty much full time and flying all around the country. So when I finished, I came to Heritage, where I've been ever since. And I love coins, I love collecting, and I love helping people with their collections, whether buying or selling. So I'm thankful that I feel I'm really in the right place. Now, a day at our office. Let's picture for a moment that we're at the corner of Park Avenue and 57th Street. Heritage's offices in Manhattan are at 445 Park Avenue. And unlike our big office in Dallas, the headquarters that you've all probably seen pictures of, what we do every day is a little different. Every day is unique, and it's a bit of a treasure hunt. You never know who might walk in the door, you never know who might call, and we're always getting inquiries from both established collectors and also from new people who are new to coins, who maybe found them online, who inherited them, who are not familiar with numismatics yet, and they're coming to us as a source of information. Now, when people get in touch with us about their coins, there's both treasures and there are also some duds. Let me say there's a lot of duds before you find the treasures. And there are also lots of raw coins. Now, there are some of us who mostly collect slabs in our personal collection, but if you're going to work in an auction house, you're going to be exposed to a huge array of material, and much of that is raw. So it's really important to be able to carefully hunt through everything with your loupe and find, is this a variety? Is it a rare date? Is there something special about it? Could it be an error coin? We're always hunting through stacks and piles of raw coins, or in the world of COVID, where more people than ever are sending us their inquiries digitally, piles and piles of photos in email as well. We're going through everything, we're looking for treasure, and we're trying to help people figure out, what do they have? What is it worth? In addition, it's not just coins. Personally, my specialty is numismatics, and I feature mostly coins and paper money in my day-to-day work. We have 40 different categories here at Heritage: art, antiques, decorative arts, sports memorabilia, you name it, lots of other items. So people are coming to us at our office all the time with new questions. What is my Mickey Mantle card worth? What is my Tiffany lamp worth? Is this a real Lalique vase, or is it something else? We get all kinds of interesting questions that I frequently get to work with my colleagues in our 40 or so different departments to help people figure out, what do they have and how can we help them? Here are some examples of real photos I've received this week. Items that people emailed us and wanted to find out, what are they worth? I admit I did get a little bit of a laugh over the piece that was labeled antique over 100 years old. So in case you're wondering, they wanted to make sure we knew this was an antique. In the middle, of course, we have a Morgan dollar. This person was hoping that it was a very rare bimetallic version. Some of you who collect Morgans probably recognize that instead it's simply a plated piece that someone has, had a little fun with outside the mint, not a mint error. The piece on the right, someone tried to convince me was a rare mint error. Unfortunately, it's a piece that has seen some circulation and some corrosion. So as you see, we're always on a treasure hunt. People send us photos of things, they make appointments to bring in their collections. They're always showing us what they think is valuable, and they're hoping that they find a winner. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. In addition to evaluating people's collection, there's a lot of other things that we do and that will happen on an average day in Heritage's New York office. One of those things is lot viewing and previews. We have rotating displays in our window on Park Avenue, which in a pre-COVID world, there were more people walking by, but there's still quite a lot of people walking by, and they stop and see, well, what does Heritage have on display this week? Just since January of this year, we've had beautiful Asian art objects, we've had Tiffany lamps, we've had coins, which are there most of the time. We've also had sports memorabilia, exciting sports card, a Mickey Mantle bat. There's always something new and something cool to see, whether in our window or we're doing a full preview. So we've got great things on display, and we have people make appointments to come in and look at whatever they like. If you hear there's something on display in New York and you'd like to see it, you can get in touch with us and we will arrange a time that's handy for you and for us so that you can check that piece out. It's really a lot of fun to have that opportunity to view some of the items in person when you're here. Another thing that we do a lot of at the office is helping with estate planning. Whether you've inherited collections or you're trying to figure out what to do with your collections when you leave it to your heir, people often need advice in this matter. So we help collectors and we help their families. Some of you may have seen something called the Collector's Handbook. It's an estate planning guide that we actually make available for free at ha.com. You can download it at no cost as a PDF. It's very helpful, but that's not always enough information. People have specific questions. So a frequent question that I get asked is, people come in or they contact us, they call us, ask for help with estate planning for their collection. As collectors ourselves, as being in the business, we're familiar with how to help and can give you some advice. Another area most people don't necessarily realize we do so much of, but we actually do quite a lot of, is appraisals. So you might have gotten an appraisal done for something in the past, whether it was an insurance need that you were trying to have a stated value for an item so that you could put it on your insurance policy. Maybe you inherited something and you needed that for tax purposes. Perhaps you were handling a family member's estate. There are lots of different reasons why you might need an appraisal, but as USPAP compliant appraisers, we have an actual full appraisals department that specializes in creating those appraisals reports for IRS, estate, insurance, any purpose that you might need. That's something we do a lot of. And our experts, whether it be me or our art glass expert, Nick Dawes, or maybe our paintings expert, Aviva Lehman, the expert at that category will put values on each of your items and work with one of our licensed appraisers to produce the appraisal report you need. So we do a lot of that, and also free appraisals. People come to us all the time just wanting to know what something's worth, an informal opinion. which, as I mentioned earlier, is free, and we do that all the time. Another thing not everyone thinks about that we do quite a bit of is bidding advice. We'll have people come to us and say, I've seen that you have more colonials from the Partrick collection, Donald Partrick's collection, coming up in April at what used to be the Central States auction. Now it's just the April auction in a COVID world, but we have them coming up. What can you tell me about this particular lot? What can you tell me about this New Jersey copper? Do you think it's nice for the grade? How much do you think I might have to pay to get it? Those types of questions. So they'll come to us and they'll ask for advice for how come we tell them what something's worth in an auction, or what a good bidding strategy might be, or they're trying to pick between two coins, figure out which one they'd really enjoy owning the most, and they need a little help. Bidding advice is a common question we get. Again, it's a free service. We're glad to help. If you're wondering about something in an upcoming auction and you're local, you can arrange an appointment to come in and talk to us, or you can give us a call from anywhere on the world. As long as you call during business hours Eastern time, we'll be glad to hear from you wherever you might be. Here's some examples of preview day at Heritage. I had mentioned all the different viewings we do on a set schedule. Here's an example of a handbag viewing we had. We had some handbags on display as lovely posters in our window. And then in our gallery, we had the bags available. Now, for those of you who are coin collectors and you're asking, well, why did you have bags on display? Actually, handbags are a very hot commodity at auction, and especially at Heritage. We do sell Hermes, Chanel, and other designer bags that sell for significant sums, often $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, or even more. The bag in the lower left of the photo, the one, not the pink, but the one to the left of that, is called a Himalayan Birkin. And this particular type of bag often sells for $100,000. So, more expensive than a lot of coins if you think about it. Pretty exciting. And then another preview not so long ago. This is from when we had the Armstrong family collection on display in New York at Heritage a couple years ago. Neil Armstrong, the famous astronaut, his family had entrusted Heritage to sell his collection. And this is just a small sampling of some of the pieces that we had on display here in New York. It was a lot of fun for coin collectors because there were neat numismatic related pieces in this collection, including a Morgan dollar that had been flown to the moon. NGC graded it and verified that provenance. It's really quite neat. In fact, if you look closely on the case on the right, there are some slab coins you can make out that are all in NGC holders. So this was both a numismatic display and also a space history display. Another recent display from a couple years back, this is one of our silver auctions. So you'll see in the back there is a Kate Moss print from one of our modern contemporary art department sales, and then the front two cases contain silver pieces, the one on the right being more contemporary and the one on the left being more traditional. So there's always something neat. I'm always learning something new with what we have on display. Another favorite that we've had in the past and look forward to having again in the near future is celebrity memorabilia. This tends to turn heads as people walk by on Park Avenue. They walk by our office and then they stop and they look more closely. This was Sylvester Stallone's personal collection of his movie memorabilia that he entrusted Heritage to offer for him at auction. And this is just a small sampling of some of the, Rocky Balboa and all those other great pieces we had. The outfit he wore when running up the steps, lots of other things you'd recognize from his movies. And that was a lot of fun. We had those pieces on display here in New York. So as I say, there's always something new. A day at our office includes great displays of, fascinating things, all of which have their own story. So in this way, we're always learning, whether you, like me, are in our coin department or one of our other departments, there's always something to learn. And if you're in New York, you should schedule a time to visit us. We'd love to have you come in for bidding advice, to see a display, to show us a coin, to consign something to auction, whatever it is you need, we'd want to hear from you. We're glad you're here and we want to be here as a resource for you. Now, continuing on to my next topic, which is the auction market in 2021. Now, all of us have been affected by this COVID situation in different ways, and I really hope that this talk is finding you in good health and finding you well. But the silver lining to all of this staying home, The time at home has brought out collectors in many of us, even those of us who were serious collectors before. Work kept us busy, family kept us busy, lots of things might have slightly kept us from some of the time that we might have spent on our collections. And we found here at Heritage that that has really changed during this whole COVID time. After the initial uncertainty in spring 2020, at first, people really didn't know what it would bring. There was a sort of halting, people were scared and worried, and very rightly so. But ever since then, things in the auction market have been extremely positive. We've seen tons of collectors reclaiming their childhood. They're taking this opportunity to say, you know, when I was young, I loved baseball cards. I'm going to spend more time checking them out and seeing, you know, what could I purchase that I would really enjoy having? Or when I was younger, I liked collecting Lincoln pennies. I used to have a Lincoln penny album. What are Lincolns worth now? And then they start, you know, digging in and learning more and finding out more, and pretty soon they're buying coins. Maybe they're thinking about other things they used to enjoy in their childhood, comic books. These are all collector favorites. And they're bringing people to auction. They're bringing people who have a little extra time, who are spending more time at home, to revisit the hobbies that maybe they loved when they were younger, or they've continued as an adult, but they just didn't feel they had enough time to devote to it. And I suppose extra time in your living room is not a bad time to organize your collection, to go through what you have, what you might like to have, and what's important to you. So people are finding that they do, in some cases, have extra time to look online, to bid online, and this is translated into a lot of strong prices for many rare pieces at auction. This is also dovetailed at the same time with something that many of you have likely noticed if you follow the metals markets. There's been a lot of demand over the past year since spring 2020 for hard assets. There's been a lot of call for diversification, other types of things that you could purchase, people purchasing gold and silver bullion, purchasing collectibles, coins, antiques, and other pieces. So all of these components are really working together, and it has really driven interest in collectibles during the pandemic time. So with all of these positive things we're seeing, there's some interesting trends that have come out of this. So I'm going to touch on what's hot and what's not, how grading has been really important, and also the power of the internet at a time when all of us are spending more time at home. The first collecting trend I'm going to talk about is the power of the internet. So this is nothing new, but it's really accelerated during COVID. Some of you might be aware that Heritage was one of the first auction houses of any kind, of any topic, to really take internet bidding seriously and say that this is going to be important and this is going to be the way to do business in the future. We first started accepting internet bids in 1999, and we've had a very strong web presence all the way back to 1996. But today, about 90% of winning bids come from the internet. And this isn't just because of COVID. Those numbers were almost the same even before. The trend is just accelerating even more now. And that web presence in the beginning, Jim Halperin and the other founders of Heritage believed very strongly in making information available and putting information out there for collectors. They decided it was important to have the auction archives available for free to everyone. They wanted to put up articles, and they've really continued forward that vision of sharing information, of making information available for free to all collectors today. Personally, I write a lot of articles for our blog, which we do find new collectors use to teach them about things. We look at what we get a lot of questions about, and we try to put that information out there to help people. Such as recently, we found we were getting a lot of inquiries about no-S proofs and what coins without mint marks were worth. So I put together an article helping people figure out whether or not they have a rare no-S piece, or if they just have a common dime. So we put a lot of information out there on the internet to help people, to give them the details that they need. And as a result, the site has just grown in popularity. We're at the point where HA.com has over 1,400,000 registered bidders. And those bidders are very global, they're very international, they're in 195 different countries, which it's hard to even imagine. If you're not great at geography, it's probably you couldn't name a lot of those 195 countries. But the exciting thing is there are collectors all over the world collecting all kinds of things. So people have been finding that staying connected with their hobbies is a way to stay connected with each other during COVID. We've seen a lot of interest in collectors sharing information, attending coin club talks through Zoom, chatting with each other online about what they're enjoying, what they've purchased. And meanwhile, less coin shows have meant more online bidding. A lot of us in the audience might have enjoyed a time when we could easily travel. You'd get on a plane and you wouldn't even think about it. You'd go to a coin show and attend lot viewings, see your friends, learn something new, see new coins. But without that opportunity, collectors have gone online and they've found ways to make things work using the internet. So it's really been a new way of doing things, but also an old way of doing things in that, as I said, people have been doing this for a while, they're just doing it even more now, and it's become even more important. So next trend is what's hot in 2021. Now, some of these things may be very familiar to you in terms of collecting trends, others not so much. The first thing that has been a huge deal recently at auction, and specifically during COVID, is urban art and street art. Now, some of you may be familiar with the street artist KAWS, spelled K-A-W-S. For those who aren't, if I were to show you a picture of some of his pieces, you might think, that looks a little bit like a plastic toy. Well, and in reality, it sort of is. The pieces are, in many cases, mass-produced, or at least editioned. But interestingly enough, street art and urban art have become an enormous area. There's a boom in this area of collecting. And for people who tell you that there's not enough young collectors, they might be looking in the wrong place. The average age of our bidders in the urban art and street art area, which is part of our overall modern and contemporary art department, is huge. And in our New York office, when we have done lot viewings and we've done displays of urban art pieces, you'd be really pleasantly surprised at the average age of the collectors who walk in the door to see the lot viewing. So if you ever are curious to find out more about this area, it includes prints, it includes sculptures, those sorts of things. And it's really active right now. Art, graffiti art, street art, all of these areas are huge and they're expanding and the bidder base continues to grow. Similarly, we've seen a lot of interest and activity in collectibles and art that have global appeal. Pieces that are by artists that are up and coming from other countries, pieces that appeal to audiences from all over the world who are visiting the auction virtually through wherever they are using the internet. Meanwhile, the coin side of things, a little more familiar topic to most of us numismatists, one of the pieces that's really hot right now is either a top quality or top grade coin. So this includes registry quality pieces, something that's a really high grade that is going to be an upgrade for those who are working on their PCGS or NGC registry. It also includes CAC verified coins, which is part of the trend towards selectivity and being more quality conscious, and just ultra grades in general. I'll have some examples for you later, but anything that falls in one of these three categories is often bringing a surprising price and setting new records. The kind of thing that'll be published in Coin World as a record price the next week after the auction's over. As I touched on earlier, another thing that's just really active, really hot right now is anything that allows collectors to reclaim their childhood. So comic books and sports memorabilia have been hugely popular in general for the last couple of years, but the prices have really risen on nice material and in general across the board in sports memorabilia since the pandemic. A lot of collectors are using this chance to revisit the things that they loved when they were younger and purchasing them on a more serious level, especially for those of us who may not collect in this area but know about grading. Certification has become a big deal in these collecting areas and has helped collectors to further evaluate what each piece is worth. In the same vein, we find video games and Pokemon cards. And yes, these are things that sound fairly recent. Video games are not that old. You're not going to have an 1882 video game the way you would an 1882 Morgan dollar. They don't have the benefit of age to the same degree that a lot of other collecting areas do, but doesn't mean they aren't valuable. Heritage frequently sells both video games and Pokemon cards for $5,000, $10,000, even $500,000, and new records are being set all the time. So these are fairly young areas of collecting, like urban art and street art that I mentioned. While they're collected by a wide array of ages, there are a lot of younger collectors. So for those of us who are wondering where the young collectors are, again, this is another place that you're going to find them. Meanwhile, I did touch on the importance of quality and how condition and quality have become really motivating factors in strong prices. So during this pandemic in 2021 and in late 2020, we've seen huge values, huge numbers, and huge numbers of bidders for really high quality ancient coins and also rare world pieces. With the international bidder base that participates in auction and has the opportunity to do so easily online during the COVID era, we're finding huge demand for the nicest world and ancient material. Another area that has been really active and has even surprised some of us in the auction business lately is rarities. So things, in the 6-figure and 7-figure range have been setting new records recently. Here's some examples of how rarities have continued to be strong and have even set new records. Each of the 3 coins in this photo sold for over $2 million in January 2021. Now, I think that's even more stunning when you consider the fact that this auction was traditionally associated with the fun show. Now, if you've been to the fun show or if you've been every year for a long time, you know how important this event is. It usually attracts a huge audience of collectors and dealers, and it's sort of thought of as one of the places that if you were going to sell a rare coin at auction, this would be the spot. Even without that magic of having people in person, of being able to scurry around from one bourse table to another, of attending lot viewing in person, look at the sort of results that have been achieved. It's really amazing. If you open up that pool even a little more to coins that sold for over $1 million, there are many additions to this list. So rarities right now are very strong. They're a very active area of the market, and that's continued to be the case. Every time we put up a really, really exciting, really rare piece, we're seeing lots of bidder activity and lots of excitement associated with that. So of course, here we have the 1885 trade dollar. We have the brasher doubloon in the middle, and then on the far right is an early American colonial piece as we get into the beginning of the US Mint in 1792 and end the colonial era. So very exciting, all 3 very different pieces, but all 3, with happy new owners. Another key factor, what's going on in 2021, is the rise of grading and how that has had a huge effect on prices during COVID and in general. So slabbing, as we all know, has been the norm for most American coins and many coin collectors for many years now. The grading services generally started up in the 80s and 90s, and they've continued forward until now. And while not everyone buys slabbed coins, many people, if not most people, do. It's pretty established and very familiar to anyone who would look at an auction catalog for coins or attend a coin convention. But certification's new, and it's creating a new or a more valuable market for some other collecting categories that Heritage is involved in, and that we do see in our New York office often. Sports cards, ancient coins, comic books, Pokemon cards, and video games. These are all collecting areas that we've seen in our office recently that have been hugely benefited by certification. I recently worked with one of my colleagues in the sports department to help a coin collector who's entrusted Heritage to sell his sports memorabilia as well. And he was very familiar with NGC and PCGS for coin grading, but he was shocked at the prices that we told him we'd likely be able to expect for his sports cards because of certification. One of his cards grades a Gem Mint 10, and Lee, my colleague in sports, was so excited to tell him what that means. So grading has been a huge deal in sports cards, and similarly in other pieces that are graded in a similar way, such as comic books and Pokemon cards, both of which, like paper money, have that component of being made in paper. And if you're familiar with paper money grading, there are some similarities between it and the grading of sports cards, comic books, and Pokemon cards. They look at the color of the paper, they look at how well centered that piece is, the margins, whether or not there are any sort of folds or edge bumps. If you've ever thought about paper money grading, you might know a little more than you expect about grading of those 3 areas. Meanwhile, ancient coins and video games have also seen big increases in prices for nice material associated with grading. Ancients often were raw, and many still are raw. but NGC certification has become a very popular way to open up the audience for ancients. Meanwhile, certification is established for US coins, but it's really creating a frenzy in some of these other areas. And you might be surprised or impressed at some of the results we've achieved because of this trend. Here's an example. On the coin side of things, here is an ancient Judean silver shekel. Really beautiful piece. These are very popular with collectors, not only of ancients, but also who simply would like to own a piece of Jewish world history. So this coin is almost perfect according to what NGC's criteria for ancient coins are. You'll see that there are 3 aspects to NGC grading of ancient coins. On the top is the grade. Number 2, where it says strike, that's the quality of the strike out of 5, so how well centered, how well struck the coin is. And then number 3, also on a 1 to 5 scale, is the quality of the surfaces. So there they address, has it been brushed or cleaned? How bright is it? How nice are the surfaces? And they also may, in some cases, put comments below, almost like a details grade on American coins. If there's something else to say, they might say it's brushed or scratched or graffiti, something of that nature. Picture similar to a details coin. If there were other comments, they would go beneath. But because this coin is so lovely, it's in such nice condition, and these pieces are so popular, those 2 factors combined to sell for a very strong price. This coin brought $12,000 in a recent heritage auction. And if you're familiar with this area of the market, you're probably aware that these used to be worth quite a bit less than that. Granted, they've always been popular, but prices are much stronger now than even in recent memory for nice material, especially in high grade like this. So the power of certification really has enhanced the results that you achieve for certain pieces, with this being a great example. Next, as far as grade, here's an example of top grade modern coins and how they are often surprising us in terms of their prices. This 1959 half dollar sold for $19,200 at Heritage in January. And when we were first contacted by this consignor, at first they just said, oh, I have a 1959 proof half dollar, which if you are familiar with US proof sets, probably didn't sound all that exciting. You can buy the whole proof set for less than $200, quite a bit less actually. So maybe we weren't impressed initially. But when they sent us a photo of this piece as a proof 68 ultra cameo with a CAC sticker, we said, haha, you really have something here. This is a little equation where we had a CAC sticker plus registry quality equals very valuable. So top pieces like this that fit into someone's registry set that are sort of trophy pieces for their series, we're often seeing surprising and wonderful results at auction. Another great example of how grading and the quest for rarity, the quest for the best material has driven up prices is this 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle card. It's PSA Mint 9. Now, unlike coins on a 1 to 70 grading scale, sports are out of 10 points. So this being a Mint 9, it's virtually perfect. The perfect grade being 10, 9 out of 10 is about the best you're going to get for a very rare card like this one. This piece recently set a record at Heritage Auctions by selling for $2,880,000. So amazing, really exciting for the new owner of this piece. Cards like this do come through our office all the time, and we get the opportunity to see amazing pieces like this that I would not have even imagined had I not had the opportunity to work in the auction world. It really is exciting. Another great example for you of how strong grading results, top grades, are bringing out big prices is this Batman #1. If you're interested in comics collecting, you probably know that the first appearance of any character is a huge deal. So the fact that this is Batman #1 is already a really important factor about its value. And look at this book, it's from 1940. So for it to have survived in a 9.4 condition with white pages out of a 10 grading scale for comics, that's pretty amazing. It's comparable to having a vintage coin that's going to be an MS-67 or 68. So really impressive. These comics were often loved and used and read, just like coins were spent in circulation. They were often not set aside. As a result, the fact that this is such a high grade is really exciting for collectors. And this piece sold for $2,220,000 at Heritage. So exciting for the new owner, exciting for everyone. Now, what happens if you have one of these hot ticket items? Let's say you've dug through your attic, you've dug through your basement, and you said, wow, I do have some of those video games. I do have that comic book. I do have that rare coin. What do you do next? You have the opportunity to consign that piece to auction and try to take advantage of, the exciting factors we have going on in the market to offer it to a broad audience of collectors. The first step in the consignment process would be to just contact us for help. And if you're local to New York, that's great. If you're not, we're still happy to hear from you. In our New York office, we help people from all around the world, whether you get in touch with us by phone, by email, or you call to arrange an appointment to come see us in person. We would evaluate your collection, be it of coins or of other things, help you figure out what it's worth. Once we together decide that those pieces or that collection is appropriate for auction, if you decide to move forward, you would either ship the pieces or bring them in. We would create paperwork for you, and if it's coins or notes or comic books or other things that need grading, we would certify whatever's needed on your behalf if it's not already graded. So this is where a day in our office comes back in. People are always either sending us boxes of things that we already agreed to have them send us. Please don't mail something without asking. That's always a bad surprise. Talk to us first and send it in. So they either are sending us things that we discussed, or they're arranging a time to bring in things that we want to look at together. And once it arrives, we go through it with them, we create paperwork, we send it to them, and we get started on all the magic that happens behind the scenes. Photography, cataloging, writing up the coins, listing them on our website, all of that stuff quietly happens in the background. It's part of the magic that occurs between when consigners give us our material and when the auction catalog is printed. And then the stage of advertising and pre-bidding begins. You've probably seen ads in Coin World, ads in other places, you've seen things online, and that's how we get the word out about all the exciting things that are coming up for bid. After that, it's auction time, and it's always a lot of fun to be involved. I'm actually one of our auctioneers, so I enjoy the opportunities I have to be on the podium. It's really exciting, and all of us work together to ensure that it's a success. We want everyone to be happy, and we love the process. Being collectors ourselves, it's really important to us. When the auction's over, it's time for settlement. We pay out checks to everyone who has consigned to the auction, and we get ready for the next one. So now a little bit of show and tell. These are a few examples of some of my favorite or most memorable things, collections and pieces that have come in the 7 years that I've enjoyed working in Heritage's New York office. Obviously, there are too many to put everything in one talk, but I hope I give you a nice little overview of some of the fun projects I've had the chance to help with. So there's a lot of raw coin adventures. I mentioned at the beginning of this talk how many raw coins we are shown, how many raw coins come in. You really need to be able to know what you're looking at. This was a very recent project that's actually one of my favorites I've been able to work on. It was an original bag of 1887 Philadelphia Morgan dollars. Now, this is just a small sampling in these photos, and you can see that many of them were beautifully toned. About 100 or 125 of the coins had really, really nice toning. The rest were not rainbow like this, but were really lovely. Many graded MS63, 4, 5, and MS66. We sent in the bag for certification on behalf of the collector who consigned it to auction. And I loved having these coins on my desk. It was really great to be able to meet with this person and help them and go through the pieces. It was really exciting. And now that their grading results are back, we're actually going to be selling these coins, the pieces that are rainbow toned, in our upcoming internet auctions. So, raw coins are always an adventure. You never know what you're going to find. We see everything from fake $1804, which obviously we can't sell, to really beautiful groups like this. The average value of these pieces may not be the most expensive project I've ever handled, but it was really a lot of fun. There's something special about having 1,000 silver dollars in front of you and pulling up a handful and looking at a group of them that's beautifully toned. I hope this gives you just an idea of how neat that was to have on my desk. Another one of my favorite projects was the Dresden collection. Now, if any of you participate in our World and Ancient Coin auctions, you might remember coming across some pieces in the last year or so that had the pedigree Dresden collection. This was an old-time collection of coins and medals, both German and also a lot of proclamation medals, Central American, Mexican, those sorts of things. Really beautiful stuff. When the collector first contacted me and said they had lots of coins inherited from a family member and no one had looked at them since the 1960s, at first, it sounded promising, but I didn't want to get my hopes up too much because, I've had people call us and say, I have a collection that no one's looked at since the 1960s and it's all, 1948 wheat pennies or something. So you never want to get too excited until you know what you're looking at. But I asked, can you send me some photos of a few of the pieces and, just show me what they look like? And they sent me email images, and you can bet I was on the phone quickly after that email came in, because what I saw was beautiful medals and really neat world pieces, all in these ancient envelopes that were, clearly put together by someone with great care and a lot of love. So that collector scheduled a time to come in and show me their collection. And this is an example here of just one of the many, many pieces. It's a St. Eustatia medal. You can probably get a sense from the look of it here that it had a very nice proof-like character to it. Now, this definitely was not the most expensive piece in the collection. The overall value was significant, but this was a memorable piece for me because when I pulled, it was one of the first pieces I pulled out of the box and out of the envelope. Really looks like he's just staring you down. So it was a fun medal. And it was especially nice to have such things all raw and have the chance to go through them with the collector, help them, grade them, help them get started. So we see a lot of old time collections, as they're often known in the business, and we help those collectors get the best results we can for their items. So it's really a lot of fun. And to this day, I won't forget the Dresden collection. Next, we've seen a lot of really neat, rare varieties. There are a lot of treasure hunters, people who are hoping they found something valuable. And unfortunately, a lot of times they contact us, they come see us in New York, they email us, they call us, and well, they don't quite have what they're hoping for. They think they have a Cheerios variety Sacagawea dollar, but it's really just a regular Sacagawea dollar. But this is someone who actually struck pay dirt. This is a 1992 close AM Lincoln cent. And even if you're not a modern coin collector, even if you're not a Lincoln cent collector, you may have heard of the close AM. It's a very rare variety. There are some from both the Denver and the Philadelphia mints in 1992. The thing that changed is they were changing the reverse die used for the Lincoln cent, and some were made with the close AM in America rather than the wide AM. This coin was the result of great tenacity on the behalf of one collector. He hunted through thousands of coins from his change. He hunted through thousands of coins from his bank. He looked and he looked and he looked, and he would go to the bank and ask for rolls of pennies. And he looked through everything with a loupe until he found this coin. And, people do contact us frequently about 1992 close AM cents. And honestly, most of those inquiries are not a close AM, they're the regular version. But this guy had the right coin. And he got it graded, we helped him with that, and we sold it at auction for $22,800 in November 2020. So he paid a penny for it, plus the grading fee, and got $22,000. That was pretty exciting. So it's always fun when we discover rare varieties and when we help people make those discoveries and turn those dreams into reality. On the thread of lucky finds, this is another really cool one. So I had someone get in touch with us at our office who said, I have a bunch of Sacagawea dollars, but I think they might be something because my uncle worked for a cereal company and he told me that I should set them aside because they might be worth something. And I put two and two together and I thought, well, if he worked for a cereal company, maybe he has a Cheerios dollar. So I looked at all of the pieces, I took a careful look, and indeed, one of them was a Cheerios variety. It wasn't in the original Cheerios packaging anymore, but it was exactly the right coin. And we got this piece graded for that collector, and we helped him out, and it graded an MS-68. So for those of you who are interested in moderns, you know what a big deal that is. The Cheerios dollars rarely grade above a 67, so a PCGS 68 is a huge deal, and it's a really popular registry set coin, or for anyone who's building a Sacagawea dollar set. So this piece brought an amazing $12,000 in February of this year, and that man was so excited. This was a wonderful thing that we were able to help him with. Another very recent project that I have enjoyed very much and is actually ongoing as we speak is this fabulous error coin from the Errorpalooza collection. This is another one of those fun calls where someone calls you and they're like, oh, I have error coins, and you're kind of like, oh, I don't know, tell me more about them. But then he started explaining they're certified, they're really neat errors, and he starts giving you some of the examples, and immediately, I started to get excited right along with him. This is a 1981 die cap cent struck on a nickel planchet. If you like errors, if you're interested in errors, you probably know how rare it is to have a penny struck on a nickel planchet. Now we see a lot of larger planchets with coins the other way around, but the factor with this is that the penny die is much smaller than that nickel planchet. So look at the way it dishes out. You might see a $50 struck on a quarter planchet, you might see a quarter struck on a nickel planchet, or you might see a penny struck on a dime planchet because the dime planchet is smaller. But this is sort of backwards, where we have the smaller coin struck on the larger planchet. This was really a huge deal, in addition to the fact that it's a dual error where it's also a die cap, meaning there would have been other planchets stuck at the same time and it kept pressing until this eventually got ejected. Really, really neat. This is an error that personally I had never seen before, and in fact, I have not found a record of any piece like this being sold at Heritage ever in the past. I can't find any record of another Lincoln cent die cap on a nickel planchet, so it quite possibly may be a unique piece. It's something really, really neat that we're excited about, and it's part of our special monthly error coin auction that is currently online for pre-bidding. So the Errorpalooza collection, I know it's a silly name, it's meant to be fun. This was one of my favorite recent calls of things that crossed my desk that came in our New York office. And I'll just give you one more little example. There are a lot of pieces in this collection and they're all really great. It's hard to pick favorites, but another one of my favorites is this Sacagawea dollar error. So this one is struck on a quarter planchet, which is really quite crazy. It makes it look like a completely different coin. So not only is it struck on a nickel planchet, but in addition, it survived in really beautiful condition, much nicer than you'd usually see, and PCGS graded it a MS68. If only it were a wrong planchet MS68 Cheerios dollar error, then we'd really be talking exciting, but it's still pretty exciting even as it is. So thank you so much for joining in. I hope you've enjoyed imagining what a day might be like for us. And I really hope that you find a time to come visit us sometime soon. Thanks everyone, and I open to any questions.
Alrighty, then you can go ahead and hit that stop share button at the top of your screen. And Zoom is doing something strange where I cannot see what is in the Q&A. So Sarah, if you click on that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, can you see the questions that are in there?
I can.
Okay, I'm afraid you're gonna have to run your own Q&A and I'm gonna do some troubleshooting with Zoom.
We're gonna run it. All right, so somebody tells me the audio is echoing and I'm sorry. Whatever issue you had, I apologize. Question from FC. FC wants to know, what was the rarest coin someone just walked in the door with and didn't know what they had? Fun question. This is actually a territorial gold coin. I had an elderly woman call and say, I have a coffee can of coins. I want to bring it in. I need your help. And, I kind of felt bad for her. She sounded like she could use the money. So I said, okay, you can bring in your coffee can. And I'm digging through it. There's nothing there. And then bottom of the coffee can, there's a pile of wheat pennies and something gold. So I pick it up and I look at it, and it is an assay office piece. So we ended up selling that. It wasn't in great condition, obviously, rattling around her coffee can for who knows how many years, but we ended up selling that for about $15,000, which was a huge amount of money for someone who just had a coffee can sitting in their closet in their apartment in the Bronx. So it was really exciting for her. It was a huge deal. It's not the most expensive piece that's ever come in the door, but it's definitely the rarest coin that's come in that someone just had no idea what they had and really needed our help. Next, RS wants to know, what about the sophisticated collector who has a lot of auction experience? Do you see a lot of pushback against the seemingly inflated prices in the coin market, especially ancients? Thanks for asking that. I think that's a good question. To be honest with you, we're finding that if a sophisticated collector feels prices are too high in a certain area, they're actually often looking to sell certain pieces. So not everyone reacts that way, but I have had people come to me recently and say, I've been collecting ancients for 20 years. I've been collecting, German states coins for 20 years, what have you. And I'm noticing the prices. I'm finding that I really can't buy anything that I want to buy or that I like at these high levels. I'm going to sell a few coins. I've also heard a few people say they're going to sit it out for 6 months and watch and see what happens, because that same, whatever their budget was, be it $300, $3,000, $30,000, wherever you were, if they're saying that same budget isn't buying them the coin they're going to be really happy with, they're going to kind of pull back and watch what happens. But that's not most people. The vast majority are either going all in and buying whatever they can afford, or maybe they're letting us sell a few pieces for them and take advantage of that. Next, we have a message from TL. So what's hot in the world of metal collecting? Metals are a really broad area, and obviously there's a lot of places you can look. But two things that I've noticed that are very popular recently are, number one, metals that are at sort of the junction of political Americana collecting and coin collecting, the sort of things that you picture Donald Partrick might have bought, for example, Washingtonia, all of those things that kind of come at the intersection of political collecting and coin collecting. Those have been really active. And then second, just really high grades. If something's in really beautiful condition, it's lovely, it's gorgeous, it's a great design, it's in high grade, we see a lot of interest in that. So those are probably the two areas of metals that I think are most active right now. All right, Zach wants to know, you've talked a lot about top pops. What about the trends with mid-graded coins, such as AU58s that are rare or scarce? Also a good point. So AU58 is one of those grades that has become popular as an opportunity to purchase something really lovely, but that maybe isn't quite as expensive as, say, an MS62 or 63, and in some cases can be more attractive. So you're absolutely right. That's another grading area that's become popular. I think specifically bust half dollars, for example. I know a few people who only collect AU58 bust halves. That's all they want, and especially if they're toned or nice. So absolutely true. MC is next, and he is curious, how common is it for a buyer not to pay? Actually, it's not that common. Traditionally, about 1% of sales fall through for whatever reason, which means about 99% do go through. And some of those sales not being completed are actually not for non-payment. Someone says their cat sat on their keyboard and bid by accident, or something went wrong in the transmission of a bid. It's not always that they can't or won't pay. Even sadly, once in a while, it's someone is unwell or passes away, which is, terrible between the time of the auction and the time the auction bill is due. So, really, we only have about a 1% rate of something not being successful. So it's pretty uncommon. Anonymous wants to know, what is your favorite part of what you do? That's actually a really easy answer. I love helping people on their treasure hunt. I love helping them figure out what they have, getting them that answer, and if we're lucky, helping them to be successful with it. So I'm a collector who enjoys helping collectors. I think it's the best part of the job. I have a couple really nice comments. Thank you so much for your comments. Then DB wants to know, what are you collecting now? You may laugh, but collecting is supposed to be fun, so please don't make fun. My personal collecting falls in a couple of areas. One, I have a thematic collection of bird coins, tokens, and medals, so anything with beautiful birds. I don't usually include eagles just because they're ubiquitous. Every Washington quarter has an eagle on them. But I have everything from agricultural medals that have chickens on them, to a condor token with a peacock, to an Athenian owl tetradrachm with a beautiful owl on it. So I like birds. I also collect South and Central American coins with an emphasis on the sun face type of the Central American Republic coinage and Argentina. And then third, whenever I see something beautifully toned that really strikes my eye, I might be in for that as well. So while I began in American coins, I really collect mostly world and ancients these days, and mostly in those three arenas of birds, South and Central American, and nicely toned. Finally, G wants to know, I have a Cheerios dollar that's not graded in a Cheerios package. What should I do? Well, if you'd like help with it, if you need to get it certified or you'd like to know what it might be worth, you're welcome to contact me. I'd be glad to assist you with that and provide you with any help you need. You can either do that or contact any reputable auction house or reputable dealer that you want to work with. I'm sure they'd love to get you started with that. If anyone else has any other questions, feel free to put them in. I think I've gotten to everyone so far.
And also a note on if anyone would like to contact Sarah, then you are welcome to go to the Contact Us page on the Symposium website and just be sure you clarify who you're trying to contact, and we will pass that along to be sure she gets that information. So that is one avenue of contact.
All right, I think I got to everyone. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I really appreciated having you all here.
All righty, thank you everyone. And that was a very interesting talk. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, be well.
Thanks, you as well. So everyone watching, we do have another presentation next hour, which I believe is with Ken Brissett. Yes, we have an interview with Ken Brissett. So that should be an exciting one as well. So you still have a few minutes to hop over into that one, and hope to see you at many more presentations throughout the weekend. Bye.
Bye.